Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutiraye Ashtapraishya Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Who obtains the classes in the Bhagavatam by rendering a service to the devotee. All that is troublesome to the is completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise transmitted songs is established as a rule. Hare Krishna, so nice to be here this semester, seeing some new faces and familiar faces. Hare Krishna Chandra. Today, the verse is 13th chapter, text 29 to 30. Topic of today is Dhritastra leaves home, finally. It's been a long time coming. Yes, I always forget how we do it here. Take one of the two? Okay. Okay, can someone read through the translation of the first, and then someone else can do maybe half the purport of that. Not all at once.
Thus Maharaj Dhritastra, the sign of the family of Ajami, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, Pragya, broke at once the strong network of familiar affection by his resolute determination. Thus, he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation, as directed by his younger brother Vidura.
Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great preacher of the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, has stressed the importance of association with sadhus, pure devotees of the Lord. He said that even by a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. We are not ashamed to admit that this fact was experienced in our practical life. Were we not favored by His Divine Grace Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj by our first meeting for a few minutes only, it would have been impossible for us to accept this mighty task of describing Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Without seeing him at that opportune moment, we could have become a very great business magnate, but never would we have been able to walk the path of liberation and be engaged in the factual service of the Lord under instructions of His Divine Grace. And here's another practical example by the action of Vidura's association with Dhritarashtra. Maharaj Dhritarashtra was tightly bound in a network of material affinities related to politics, economy, and family attachment, and he did everything in his power to achieve so-called success in his planned projects. But he was frustrated from the beginning to the end, so far as his material activities were concerned. And yet, despite his life of failure, he achieved the greatest of all success in self-realization by the forceful instructions of a pure devotee of the Lord, who is the typical emblem of a sadhu. The scriptures enjoin, therefore, that one should associate with sadhus only, rejecting all other kinds of association, and by doing so, one will have ample opportunity to hear sadhus who can cut to pieces the bonds of illusory affection in the material world. It is a fact that the material world is a great illusion because everything appears to be a tangible reality, but at the next moment evaporates like the dashing foam of the sea or a cloud in the sky. A cloud in the sky undoubtedly appears to be a reality because it rains, and due to rains, so many temporary green things appear. But in the ultimate issue, everything disappears, namely the cloud, rain, and green vegetation, all in due course. But the sky remains, and the varieties of sky or luminaries also remain forever. Similarly, the absolute truth, which is compared to the sky, remains eternally, and the temporary cloud-like illusion comes and goes away. Foolish living beings are attracted by the temporary cloud, but intelligent men are more concerned with the eternal sky with all its variegatedness.
Can we do the next verse also? Somebody else want to read this translation?
The daughter of King Subal of Kandahar or Gandhara followed her husband, seeing that he was going to the Himalaya mountains, which are the delight of those who have accepted the staff of the renounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good lashing from the enemy. Do you want me to continue? So Balini or Gandhari, daughter of King Subal and wife of King Dhritarashtra, was ideal as a wife devoted to her husband. The Vedic civilization especially prepares chaste and devoted wives, of whom Gandhari is one amongst many mentioned in history. Lakshmiji Sita Devi was also a daughter of a great king, but she followed her husband, Lord Ramachandran, to the forest. Similarly, as a woman, Gandhari could have remained at home or at her father's house, but as a chaste and gentle lady, she followed her husband without consideration. Instructions for the renounced order of life were imparted to Dhritarashtra by Vidura, and Gandhari was by the side of her husband. But he did not ask her to follow him because he was at that time fully determined, like a great warrior who faces all kinds of dangers in the battlefield. He was no longer attracted to so-called wife or relatives, and he decided to start alone. But as a chaste lady, Gandhari decided to follow her husband till the last moment. Maharaj Dhritarashtra accepted the order of Vanaprastha, and at this stage, the wife is allowed to remain as a voluntary servitor. But in the sannyas stage, no wife can stay with her former husband. A sannyasi is considered to be a dead man civilly, and therefore the wife becomes a civil widow without connection with her former husband. Maharaj Dhritarashtra did not deny his faithful wife, and she followed her husband at her own risk. The The sannyasis accept the rod as the sign of the renounced order of life. There are two types of sannyasis. Those who follow the Mayavadi philosophy, headed by Sripad Shankaracharya, accept only one rod, Ekadanda, but those who follow the Vaishnavite philosophy accept three combined rods, Tridanda. The Mayavadi sannyasis are Ekadanda Swamis, whereas the Vaishnava sannyasis are known as Tridandi Swamis, or more distinctly, Tridandi Goswamis, in order to be distinguished from the Mayavadi philosophers. The Ekadandi Swamis are mostly fond of the Himalayas, but the Vaishnava sannyasis are fond of Vrindavan and Puri. Jai Vrindavan Dham ki. The Vaishnava sannyasis are Puri ki. The Vaishnava sannyasis are Narottams, whereas the Mayavadi sannyasis are Dhiras. Maharaj Dhritastra was advised to follow the Dhiras because at that stage it was difficult for him to become a Narottam.
Thank you. Maybe we can just quickly go through the first verse, Sanskrit, and word for word. Evam Raja Vidurena Nujena Evam Raja Vidurena Nujena Pragya Chakshurbodhita Achamida Pragya Chakshurbodhita Achamida Chitva Sveshu Sneha Pashandradimno Chitva Sveshu Sneha Pashandradimno Nischa Krama Bratra Sandarshitadva Nishka Krama Bratra Sandarshitadva. You want to try it? Rajavi Durena Nujena Shubodhika Ajamida Chitva Sveshu Sneha Pashandradimno Nishka Krama Bratra Evam Raja Vidurena Pragya Chakshurbodhita Ajamida Chitva Sveshu Sneha Pashandradimno Nishka Krama Bratra. The word for word together. Evam, thus, Raja, King Dhritastra, Vidurena Anujena, by his younger brother Vidura, Pragya, introspective knowledge, Chakshu, eyes, Bodhita, being understood, Ajamidha, Dhritastra, sign of the family of Ajamidha, Chitva, by breaking, Sveshu, regarding kinsmen, Sneha Pashan, strong network of affection, Radhimna, because of steadfastness, Nishkakrama, go out, Bratrir, by his brother, Sandarshita, direction to, Adva, the path of liberation. Om Jnana Timirandasya Niranjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Vishtaya Bhutala Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Vastitya Deshita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo. So both verses I found really important. I thought maybe to focus on this one, and if there's some time to speak on the next one also. I think this is such a turning point verse. Dhritastra finally has got it in his head, and his heart has finally changed. And it's the one person you would probably least expect to take advice and to change his mind. I mean, it's just like the whole Kurukshetra war, the whole life of the Pandavas, so many years, so much time. It's just this stubborn king, blind spiritually, blind materially. He's just this emblem of stubbornness and blindness. And it's really led to bad decision again and again. And it's hurt so many people. It's killed so many people. It's destroyed his entire family to the point he's just left living in the house of his enemy. Like Vidura says, like you're just like a dog living off, a master. And here you are thinking that you're still some king. You're still King Dhritastra. But look at you. Like time is going to come. You're getting old. Your teeth are falling out. Well, what I found really interesting was a few points here. And the first is that he was firmly convinced by introspective knowledge. This word, introspective knowledge. Do you recognize that from somewhere in the Bhagavad Gita? Introspective knowledge, introspective sage. Does that ring a bell? Anybody? There's a verse, what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective stage. You heard that? So the Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter. It's got a double meaning. The literal meaning is, yes, those who are spiritually inclined are up early in the morning, when those who are not are usually sleeping. But the deeper meaning behind this is those who are asleep, meaning asleep to spiritual knowledge, asleep to introspective knowledge, to understanding something deeper than what's on the material level. The introspective sage is awake. He's awake to that knowledge. He's awake to this understanding, where the materialistic person is asleep to it. So he really represents this materialistically attached person, Dhritastra, 100% in every field. Prabhupada says in the purport, political, family, money, everything like that. He's so attached to that. But finally it broke. And it broke because of what? Because of who? Vidura, who is a sadhu. And then, so this sadhu sangha point is so important. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, sadhu sangha sarva shastra kai, lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hai. That means the verdict of all revealed scriptures is that even by a moment's association, lava matra, a moment's, it's defined as 1/11 of a second. With a pure devotee, one can attain all success. And it's such a powerful statement. Srila Prabhupada gives his own personal example. I've spent just a few minutes with my spiritual master. And my trajectory, he says, could have become very materially successful. I had a business, I had children, I had a family, I was on that path. But this moment, and that moment fructified. He met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had the instruction to, I can't remember if the first one was to preach in the English language or to go to the West, but these instructions came, both of them eventually. And it stuck with him and it fructified, and it took years to happen. But that moment's association, if you look at the grand scheme of time, a few minutes is really like a moment. It stayed so potent with him. And so this point is made here that Vidura, a real sadhu, had finally, through his words, his conviction and compassion, that he finally broke through this material bond of attachment. And he became introspective. But what I find very, very interesting is it's not just he is a sadhu that came from outside and knocked on the door and said, hey, what are you doing? Get out of here. And Dhritastra was like, wow, I never thought about that before. Good idea. Vidura has tried this again and again and again and again and again. He's the younger brother. He's the advisor to the king. And so many times he's tried to advise Dhritastra, what you're doing is wrong. Like, let me give you the right thing to do from both a political side and from a spiritual aspect. And so before the war happened, so many instances happened where Dhritastra was favoring his son. Basically, he was born the eldest in the family, but he was blind, so he was not able to be the heir to the throne. His brother Pandu, who passed away young, was the heir to the throne, and was the king to be. And so what happened was, because of him passing away and Dhritastra not being able to lead, Dhritastra felt, my eldest son Duryodhan and my children, my 100 sons, they should be in charge. But the rightful heir was actually the Pandavas. So then there was this big conflict, and he really tried everything in his power to make sure that his son came on top. He tried to invite the Pandavas, and meaning his nephews and his sister-in-law Kunti, oh, come to this beautiful vacation home, spend some time there. But really his whole idea was to set them on fire and kill them all. Vidura knew about this and warned ahead of time. He designed this gambling match, this dice match that was rigged, and took everything from them, banished them to the forest. When they came back, they were supposed to have a small piece of land that they would rule, didn't give it to them. Krishna himself came right before this war was supposed to happen to ask for a peace offering, ignored it fully. And at this point, the war was pending, and Vidura, who was he was a devotee the whole time, and very learned, gave good advice. He said, look, you've made a lot of offenses, Dhritastra. I'm going to try one more time to stop this, but not just making offenses to Krishna, making offenses to his devotees, but even politically. Bhima is furious. He's after blood. He wants to kill you. Think about that. Are you not afraid? Your son, he's sin personified, yet you keep him in the house, you listen to him. This is going to bring all inauspiciousness. So one after the other, he was giving so many reasons. And Duryodhan snapped. He said, who are you? You're the son of a kept mistress, giving advice to the king. Who are you to be here? You have no position doing this. And Vidura felt so hurt, but he also took it as a sign, because the devotee takes everything as a sign, good or bad. How is Krishna's hand coming in my life right now? Okay, so this whole thing is happening. Maybe this is a sign for me to get out. Actually, maybe I need to go on a pilgrimage. Maybe I need to leave home and focus on my spiritual life, because it seems like my service here is done. He came to that conclusion. Vidura then went on this long journey, it's described later in Bhagavatam, and actually a lot of Bhagavatam is based on the conversations Vidura has with a Muni named Maitreya Muni, and Uddhava as well, but mostly Maitreya Muni. And so he does the experience himself. This is the main point here. Vidura walks his talk. He actually does what did what he told Dhritarashtra to do. He became very successful at it as well. If you look at Vidura's story and his timeline and his pilgrimage, I thought I would pull out a few pieces that I think are important for everybody, because it said here that even though he's speaking to Dhritarashtra, clearly these words are meant for him. The whole assembly was listening. And actually Yudhishthira, who was very young, his son was maybe a teenager at the time or even younger. He could have been ruling for many years, but he took note of this. He heard as well. And I think that all of you are very young, and all of you are hearing this as well. And this is, of course, meant for Maharaj Dhritastra, but the reason it's written in this book is for the whole world. And so the point being here about pilgrimage and getting out of your comfort zone and going out and having a deep spiritual experience is so important. And in fact, I'm sure that's the case for most of you right now living here. For me, it's a little different. I grew up down the road, so this is, even Krishna House feels just like home, just a few minutes away. For most of you, you probably left home or traveled from far away to live here and come here. So I wrote down a few points I felt about pilgrimage that were very important. So the real desire of a pilgrimage is less about the places one sees and the intent to return to the spiritual center of life. So externally, you're traveling far away, perhaps, or to different places, but internally, you're traveling inward. And that's what Vidura had done. He went to so many places, but he realized in order to travel inward, in order to understand the self and God better, I need to find a sadhu who has done that, someone else who has done that along the path, and try that for myself. A pilgrimage is a sacred longing. It's fulfilling a soul's real desire or hunger, because the material world has so many things we need to do to maintain ourselves, and it adds up one after the other. That it's easy to forget, but actually the soul is desiring. And even if you get reminded of it, oh no, your soul is desiring Krishna, is desiring a real relationship, a lasting relationship. It takes some digging to cut or claw back past all these layers of what we think is actually important to realize what's important. When we get out of our comfort zone a little bit and we go out and we put aside our things here, and we experience just a spiritual life and search for these answers, then it becomes very clear. And to derive a full benefit of a pilgrimage, you need to learn the art of a pilgrimage from those who have perfected it. And once you all get to the third canto and you see Vidura's pilgrimage, Srila Prabhupada writes often the purport, the purpose of a pilgrimage, the purpose of his journey was actually to meet the sadhus, actually to meet someone who has perfected what it means to be a lover of God, a lover of Krishna. And this is glorified by Yudhishthira early in this chapter, where he says, actually, personalities like you are walking places of pilgrimage, because more important than the actual physical place is that the Lord resides in your heart, and you're able to share that with everybody else. So Vidura, he experienced all of this, is the point. And because now that he's experienced it, and he's talking from a place of experience, Dhritastra can actually hear him. The words go through his consciousness, they go into his heart. Or before, maybe the same exact words were said, but it wasn't sticking somewhere. And that's really important for when we go out to seek, when we hear from a sadhu, when we hear from someone who's actually experienced and lived Krishna consciousness, it will stick, even if it doesn't at first. And if we are that person who is sharing with others, we should keep in mind that the more we try to nourish ourselves, the more it'll actually stick with somebody else. Not to say that we don't try, because we feel we're still so young or we have so much to learn, so long to go. That's part of the process. But knowing that, oh yes, just like Vidura's example, I myself have to seek the sadhu sangha. I myself have to take this journey and take that journey inward as well. And then I can it will stick with somebody else. So then Dhritastra, yeah, he listened, and it's very, very amazing, the change. It's like saying that old people don't change. And this is like the purest example of the oldest person who's never going to change, and you would never expect it. But it's very possible, because that's the power of the words of a sadhu for 1/11th of a second. It's true. It's very, very possible. And I'm sure many of you may have moments like that where you've read Srila Prabhupada's books, and maybe just one sentence or one experience of that meeting with a devotee, it's changed your life. I'm sure every single one of you has some sort of experience like that. And so this is the power of sadhu sangha. This is the power of coming from a place of experience. And I think from seeking out a sadhu sangha, seeking out the sadhu, and it's about a relationship more than just we can hear, we can read, and that's important as well. But the relationship aspect is so special as well, because it's not just any person that came and spoke to him. This is his brother that had a lot of love for him for so many years. And it's really important to make relationships with elders, with seniors, make relationships with people who are more advanced than us, because when they have your best wishes in mind, when they actually care about you, and when you know that they care about you and you care about them, that those words will hit a lot deeper, and their example will hit a lot deeper. I do want to move to the next verse, because I think it ties into this, but it has a nice point as well about Gandhari. And the Mahabharata is full of incredible examples of very strong, powerful women. And I really, really love this. And actually, it shows that everything that happens in the Mahabharata, the Kurukshetra war, it's really because of somehow or another, either the offenses made to Draupadi or Kunti, or the power of these very advanced women who are there. And Gandhari is such a powerful example because she really has so much potency, actually. She has a lot of power. And there is a really interesting story that I wanted to share about the power of this chastity she had, the power of her devotion to her husband, her willingness to stick by his side, even though she knew what he was doing was not right. But just that steadfastness and sticking by his side really created so much. You could see how powerful she became. So, because Dhritastra was born blind, Gandhari took a vow that she would blindfold herself for life, so that she would also be on the same, she wouldn't see and her husband wouldn't see it. She would be just like him in that sense and be able to experience what he's going through and be there together, really by his side fully. I'm there with you to the point where if you're not able to see, I will do the same thing. And so throughout her life, she never opened this blindfold. And there is a situation just before the last day of the Kurukshetra war, where the last son standing of Gandhari was Duryodhan. And Duryodhan was the last chance of their party to win. And so his mother, Gandhari, said, look, tomorrow you're going to fight Bhima. And this is like the biggest of rivalries here. And if you defeat him, there's a chance that we can still win, because if Bhima can't defeat you, none of them can defeat you. So she said, come to me and don't wear any clothes, come naked, and I will lift this blindfold, and by my glance I will give you all Shakti protection. And so he was like, okay, great, this is our last chance. And so Krishna kind of knew about this, and he kind of played into it a little bit. So as here's Duryodhan coming to the camp of Gandhari, and Gandhari says, okay, go outside, get changed, take off your clothes, come back, and I'll glance at you, and then you'll have a full armor of protection. So Krishna sees him. She says, what are you doing? Why are you naked? And Duryodhana goes, oh, I'm going to see my mother. You're going to see your mother, you're naked? Have you not learned anything in culture at all? Who goes to see their mother naked? Put something on. At least cover your loins. Just cover your privates with some banana leaf. So he feels really embarrassed, and he goes, yeah, he's right. What am I doing, actually? And so he gets a banana leaf, and he covers his privates, and he walks in. And Gandhari opens her blindfold, and she glances at him, and she becomes furious. She says, why didn't you listen to me? I told you, don't wear anything, because now you're vulnerable, and now you're not fully protected. And so Duryodhana didn't think very much of it. And so the next day, he fought with Bhima, and it was this long battle, and they decided to fight with clubs, with maces. It's their weapon of choice. And Duryodhana started winning, and Krishna could see this. And Krishna was the only person who knew about this glance of Gandhari. And actually, this glance is so powerful that Krishna could not even overstep the power of Gandhari that she had, due to her chastity to her husband, due to sticking by his side, due to that tapasya. Actually gained so much power that he himself could not step in without playing a little trick, because he knew if she glanced at him fully, it was fully over. There's nothing she could do. That's how powerful she was, how powerful her tapasya was. And so he told Arjuna, tell Bhima, slap the thigh, point to the thigh, and remind him, because what had happened earlier is that when Draupadi had been disrobed, then Duryodhan had mockingly kind of pointed to his thigh to his lap. Oh, come sit on my lap. In a really, really rude, horrible gesture. In the assembly of everybody, all the elders, all the Vaishnavas, the Pandavas. And so when Bhima remembered this, he became furious and he remembered, oh yeah, I'm going to smash his legs. But it's against the rule of fighting. But he did it anyways. And he defeated Duryodhana and he won. And so I thought that was a nice example of showing actually the power of the chastity of Gandhari. But then when I looked into it more, I realized this story ties into the first verse, the story of Vidura and Dhritastra. So I wanted to share this a little bit. It kind of blew my mind how it goes full circle. So before this had all happened, when Dhritastra had banished the Pandavas to the forest, during that time he was still worried because he knew the Pandavas are very powerful. And he knew they had Krishna on their side. He thought when they come back, what's going to happen? This is not over. This is just a temporary thing to create some peace. But I know this whole battle is not over. At that point, Maitreya Rishi, if you remember, is the spiritual master of Vidura, who he learned from on his pilgrimage. Maitreya Rishi actually came to Hastinapur. And Maitreya Rishi, an amazing sadhu, had spoke to Dhritastra and he said, actually, things are going to get worse. I suggest that you actually put an end to all of this. You need to apologize. This is a great offense. And Dhritastra was, he didn't want to hear about it at all. And so he kind of put it off and said, that's not the plan. That's not how we're going to go. Like, I believe in the power of Duryodhana on our side. And Duryodhana, who was very arrogant, to say the least, he kind of slapped his thigh, like, what are you talking about? Get out of here. To Maitreya Rishi, this great sadhu. And so Maitreya Rishi was very, very upset by this response, and he cursed them. He goes, this thigh that you're mocking me with, actually, Bhima is going to smash this thigh. That's how he's going to destroy you. And then he left. Dhritastra was like, oh my God, what's going on? No, take the curse back, take the curse back. But he didn't. But this is full circle. Here's a sadhu that comes, that is the spiritual master of the sadhu Vidura, who actually changed Dhritastra's mind. But there was no relationship. You see, there was no relationship between Dhritastra and Vidura. Sorry, Dhritastra and Maitreya Muni. And because of this, he didn't listen. But the disciple, Vidura, who had the relationship with Dhritastra, and who came to him after experiencing the same thing he was going to tell Dhritastra, then he finally listened. And so this point is brought back full circle. And so is the point of the thigh. And so much Mahabharata has been going in my head yesterday that I'm sorry if it's all been storytelling. It's just so interesting to me how everything is so full circle, and this incredible story of Mahabharata that has so many life lessons and so many wonderful ways to learn from all the personalities is very wonderfully described the end parts in Srimad Bhagavatam. And I really, really love the first canto because you get these very practical scenarios of the Mahabharata, and you get the essence of the bhakti points of view and the bhakti essence from these lessons, and you get Krishna's perspective, and there's just so much available in the Mahabharata through Srimad Bhagavatam, and I just absolutely love this chapter so much, and this whole story. So I just wanted to conclude. Please take a page out of Vidura's book, consider what it means to go on a journey like he did, and what it means to actually be compassionate for someone else, and who is a sadhu, who are the people, and what experiences are we creating for ourselves, how much urgency are we putting to hear from others, to create relationships with those who are more advanced than us, because it goes a long way. As you can see, it saved Dhritastra's life because he had a relationship with someone who was more advanced than him. And I honestly believe that's probably what brought all of you here, and what will save all of our lives, is having relationships with pure devotees. Jai, Hare Krishna. Questions, comments, please. It's coming this way.
you, Prabhuji. You concluded that the story relates to all of us, and all of us a bit of a Dhritastra, either now or will be later. Now, if we are unlucky enough not to have a Vidura in our life, how to get the bravery to go and look for one?
Yeah.
Because tendency is to want to sit down and not act on it.
Yeah.
So how to have this bravery to go out there and
Yeah.
to find somebody who's going to chastise you and tell you things you don't want to hear.
Yeah. I think the way to win the heart of a devotee is through service. That's what I found often. I once asked my spiritual master, how do I become close with you? How does a guru become close to the disciple? And certainly service to the instructions and hearing is there, but I think we could understand, how do I develop a close relationship? And he said service. It's through serving what's important to him, his mission, which ultimately is the mission of Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's what Parampara is. But service to advanced devotees is how you win the hearts of others, of them. And I think that how to gain the courage is training in Krishna consciousness, is developing a service attitude often. You're here, you develop a service attitude. When I lived here, I was blown away how people just always wanted to serve. And it wasn't a fake thing, it was very real. People enjoyed serving prasadam, enjoyed others. It wasn't like, hey, we need someone to serve after the Friday program, and then there's nobody there. It was always more people than was needed. And that's the courage in training. That's the practice. You're building a service attitude so that when you meet someone you're very inspired by, a sadhu comes to visit, you're traveling, you're hearing, you naturally have the inclination that I want to render some service. And Krishna appreciates this very much as well. When you render the service, then a relationship builds. But I think courage, I'm a firm believer in everything can be practiced. I know some people say you can't learn some things or these are intangibles, but I'm a firm believer everything can be practiced. And I think courage and confidence can be practiced. And I think the practice is developing the right attitude. Anyone else?
Because I really like the point you said about, because Dhritastra didn't have a relation with Maitreya Muni earlier, so just the words didn't go to his heart. But afterwards, when Vidura came, and it was his younger brother, and Vidura himself had experienced the words really meant something to Dhritastra. I was reading something about His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami, his story. He has a book on Srila Prabhupada. In the first chapter, it just talks about he's just walking down the street and he sees a Hare Krishna monk. This is back in 1970, and he recognizes it's his friend, his close friend. They played volleyball together, and he has one conversation for 1 hour, and then his whole perspective changes on what his life was and what he was pursuing as success. And it all he attests that it's because he had that relation. He trusted this person, he trusted the character of this person, and he believed that what this person is saying is correct. And so that just reminds me that unless we have a relation with someone, we know they're ready to listen to us, we should not just go and just give advice you should change your life this. Right. Also, we should try to pursue that relationship before we seek advice also, so that we're not disturbed. Why this sadhu said this, but I'm not ready to do this. So I just appreciate
totally. People tend to leave the movement when they feel unseen, unheard, unloved. They tend to stick around or come back around when they feel seen, heard, and loved. So the hard work of keeping the movement moving is the relationships and the work we have to put into that. And trying to have a shortcut and a fast way of making devotees, and without the aspect of having some love, compassion, and keeping in touch, genuinely caring about them and being part of their lives, it usually doesn't work in the long run. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for this.
Thank
This
you.
concept of we're a movement of personalists. We're being really personal with Krishna in our heart, in our service, and we have to be really personal with ourselves. Really, our relationships, our sadhu sangha is so crucial, and we
get attachment to those things, to those deities through personal association. And so
Yeah.
when we are able to genuinely be present with people, be genuinely curious, and how can we preach in a personal way is so important. And like Prabhu was saying, like you were saying, we have to know these people before we can really accurately preach to them. And we can start doing that just by being open, just by being, how do you see God? Like, what does your connection to divinity look like? And then Bhagavatam is so vast that it's so easy for us to connect if we know the Shastra, so easy for us to connect these things because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy to make this all accessible for us. We can then go and make it accessible for other people. So thank you.
Great reflection. It's very true. Yeah, please.
So I wanted to reflect on what she just said about really getting to know people. In reflection of that, try to avoid giving people unsolicited advice because it makes them feel like insecure, and it's not like, just be careful. Don't just try to preach to people. Be personal with them.
Thank you. Also, let me know if we're going way over time. Okay. You want to say, please?
Yeah, I just I couldn't but not to notice in the, I think it's the purport of the first verse, the theme of urgency that Prabhupada is using his example when he met his spiritual master, and the theme of urgency that we are seeing now here in this part of Bhagavatam of Vidura really stressing like, hey, this is urgent.
Yeah.
And what Prabhupada experienced in that short encounter with Bhaktisiddhanta is he even came up with excuses.
Yeah.
How can we do that when India is dependent?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So there was a Dhritarashtra moment, or the factor of delaying or trying to delay something that it's so most important. Krishna consciousness cannot wait.